Today we're looking at the Mi Mix, an interesting phone Xiaomi jointly developed with industrial designer Philip Stark. It has an all-ceramic body and ceramic buttons. It's actually a microcrystalline zirconia ceramic that's baked for 7 days that gives it a hardness similar to sapphire. The ceramic has a polished, high-gloss finish that makes it look a little bit like black chrome. It also makes it feel very slippery, which makes it difficult to pick up off a table or to hold in your hand without it sliding. The finish also attracts fingerprints very quickly. Normally I would say this is a negative, but I'm willing to overlook it in this case because this phone isn't really meant to be an everyday workhorse. This is more of a work of art or a piece of jewelry. Speaking of jewelry, in addition to the black model here, there's also an 18 karat gold version that has 18 karat gold rings around the camera and fingerprint sensor. There's also a white version. The back of the Mix is smooth and simple with just a flush mounted rear camera, dual color LED flash, and fingerprint sensor. On the left edge is the SIM card tray, which holds 2 nano SIM cards. There's no support for micro SD cards, however. Fortunately, it does come with either 128 gig or 250 gigs of internal storage. On the right side, there's a single piece volume rocker and power switch. The buttons are located pretty high up towards the top, which keeps them out of the way so you don't accidentally press them when picking up or handling the phone. Because the volume button is so close to the top, it's a little bit of a stretch to try and hit with your thumb. On the top are 2 microphones and a headphone jack. Personally, I like the headphone jack on the bottom, but in this case it would ruin the symmetry with the USB Type-C port flanked by 2 speaker grills. Only one of these has the single downward firing speaker. The other one is the phone's microphone. What really makes the Mix stand out is its 6.4-inch edge-to-edge display with no bezels along the sides or the top, giving it a 91.3% screen-to-body ratio. Part of what makes this possible is the panel itself, which I'll talk about later in this article, but Xiaomi also had to make several other changes to minimize the bezels. We already saw that the fingerprint sensor is located on the back, and as soon as you touch it, it'll turn on and unlock the screen. Eliminating the upper bezel required some innovative solutions for replacing the hardware that usually sits above the screen. For example, instead of an optical proximity sensor, which is basically an infrared camera, the Mix uses an ultrasonic solution from Elliptic Labs. The ultrasound speaker is actually located behind the screen, near the top, and is completely invisible. The software from Elliptic Labs processes the sound received by the phone's microphones at the top to sense when the phone is close to your face. Xiaomi also had to replace the phone's earpiece. Instead of a traditional speaker, the Mi Mix uses a piezoelectric-driven cantilevered beam that produces sound by vibrating against the phone's metal midframe. The actuator is hidden behind the screen in the upper left-hand corner, and it's pretty cool to hear the phone make sound without any visible speaker. The sound itself is probably a little bit worse than what you'd get out of a regular speaker. It kind of sounds like the other person is speaking on a speakerphone, but it's still good enough to hear in most situations. One thing I noticed is that the sound can be heard out the front of the phone just as well as it can out the back of the phone. So if you want to have private conversations, this phone might not be the best for you because the sound will emanate from both the front and the back. A couple of the other components that usually go in the upper bezel have been relocated below the screen, including the ambient light sensor in the lower left and the 5 megapixel front-facing camera in the lower right corner. This new position does take a little getting used to, as you have to hold the phone much higher than you're used to in order to capture your face. Another option, if I pull up the camera here, is you can rotate the phone so that the camera is above the bezel like normal, and the camera UI will flip so you can still use all of the controls. The Mi Mix has rounded display corners. The small radius mirrors the rounded corner on the frame, which is a nice touch and fits with the overall smooth look. The Mi Mix is definitely a beautiful phone. When you turn on the screen, it has that wow factor that's been missing for a while now, and shows that smartphone design and innovation are not yet dead.